We are
The
recording.
recording has started.
Thank you. Okay, this is a meeting of the Land Use Review Board on Friday morning, December 5th. I am Janet Hurley, the chair. I will ask individual board members to introduce themselves. Sarah.
Sarah Had, good morning.
Kirsten.
Kirsten Sultan.
Alex.
Alex Weinhagen, hello.
And Brooke is trying to tell her her oil guy where the oil, she had to step away for a minute, but Brooke is with us and will be back momentarily. So I'm sorry, I need to get the agenda up on my screen. Just a moment.
Agenda updates would be the next item, Janet, while you're
Right.
getting it up.
Do you want
If
to
anyone
ask if
has
there
them.
are any? Yeah.
Yeah,
Here's-
anybody have one?
Sounds like
don't.
no. Okay. And then let's see who we have on screen here. Any public present? It looks like no. So we can move on to the next item. Consent agenda, review and approve November 14th, November 17th, and November 20th meeting minutes.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve said minutes.
Were there any suggested edits? I have to admit that I have not reviewed all three of those minutes yet.
I'll
I have to
second
admit
for
the
the
same
sake of
thing.
conversation.
I'm sorry, Sarah, what did you say?
I'll second so we can have conversation.
Okay. Kirsten says that she hasn't reviewed them yet either.
I apologize.
I
They're-
don't think you
they're
need to
very-
apologize. We're all busy.
They're
We
very
could put this.
perfunctory in an AI manner, and I have reviewed them, and they're short and to the
Short and
point.
sweet,
Yeah,
And
just like you like them, Alex.
if we have 3 board members who can attest that they
Yeah,
are good with them, I'm good with that.
let's put it off till Brooke comes back. Okay.
I did review them
Oh,
and
okay.
everything was fine according to my review.
Okay, so if there's no further discussion, how about a vote? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That was 3. That was Alex, Sarah, and Brooke. And I will abstain.
I'm abstaining as well.
Okay, thank you. So those are approved. Oops, it's wrong screen. Sorry, I only have one screen. There's something wrong with my computer. I need to have it fixed, but we are now at operations, budget, and legislative updates. And do we have updates on these matters? Sarah?
So we don't have the typical updates for different studies. So I'll let Rachel go first, but would you consider a quick study update under this larger category?
Oh, okay, sure.
All right, I'll defer to staff first to go first.
I'm wondering, Sarah, if you want to talk about the memo to Commissioner Gresham related to the executive order, or I'm happy to do that either way.
I'll tag team with you, and I'll just state that we had a deadline of Monday to get a memo on the executive order and the fiscal impacts out. It was rather, I think Alex used the word of the day, perfunctory, and just straightforward in saying that we don't anticipate that this will impact. There's a deadline on Monday. my apologies to the board. We were operating without Janet. That got done very quickly. It's in your info packet for today. But it's, I think holds that we as a board need to talk about some of the ancillary fees. So that's something that will be a future discussion that we identified. But for right now, we met the deadline. Rachel, please fill in a little bit more of the details, if you would.
If that we had a reporting deadline to finance and management within the executive order 06-25 to report whether we had any fiscal management considerations related to changing of fees or timing of receipt of fees, you know, as contemplated under that executive order. We don't have any at this time. That's what the summary of the memo is. And that's consistent with other correspondence that we've had previously with the governor's office. So it's just sort of reiterating it to meet that 12/1 reporting period to finance and management. Any questions or discussion about that? I have one more update.
It
Go ahead,
looked very
Rachel.
consistent with our prior conversation, so thank you for making that happen by the deadline.
The other update, just to put this on the record, we have a meeting with finance and management later today regarding our fiscal year 27 budget proposal and fiscal year 26 budget adjustment proposal. So we'll be talking through the details with finance and management later today. Pete and Sarah and I are going to be in that meeting, and perhaps Janet if she has the time, but nothing more to report other than that.
Thank you, Rachel. Pete, do you have anything?
I'll just jump in really briefly on the legislative front. Not much to report there, but I'll just reminder the session will start on the 6th of January, which is just exactly a month away here. On the 5th, we'll be meeting with the committee assistants, which is a great opportunity just to meet and greet with some of the folks that help the operations run there at the State House level. So I'll plan on going to that. The deadline for drafts, I think for both the Senate and the House has closed, which is fine. I think we are set on our priorities list, which is pretty minimal. I think that, yeah, and then the other thing is just as we're starting to prepare, and we can talk about this offline here too, but it's just getting our presentations ready for those committees, and I'll make sure that we get some introductions probably in the first several weeks of January, certainly the month of January. I anticipate that we'll be in the legislative committees of jurisdiction, giving overviews of the progress of the board to date.
That meeting on the 5th with the
Committee assistants.
Yeah. When does that, is that in the morning?
I think it's 2 o'clock. Let me see.
So it may coincide with a board meeting for us because that's a Monday. Just noting that.
I don't think it's necessary for the board to attend that meeting. I'm happy to brief people on that. It's mostly a meet and greet for the committee assistants, and in my role, making sure that when they need somebody from the board to come in, I can play that air traffic controller of which board member, et cetera, who needs to be there. So just making those connections there.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah. On one other quick note on the kind of operations front of things, as you're aware, the not executive order, the requirement to come in to return to office is started as of the 1st of this month, and we are on a holding pattern given multiple factors within our various district offices at the moment, but working towards that as we get furniture and other things that are necessary to make that happen.
Okay, thanks.
That's all for me.
Okay, Jenny, do you have anything?
Nothing formal at this point. Thank
Okay.
you.
Sarah?
I'll just note that thanks to Rebecca, we have a revised and updated Tier 1A draft that I'll be working to get out onto our website and into the packets, or at least via email to the board for Monday and ahead of the December 22nd discussion. And I'll be getting that out too. So I just wanted to not take anybody by surprise, but just make sure that everybody knew that that was out there and coming, and just my hats off to Rebecca for doing some of the fine tuning. It still doesn't have the appendices yet to it, so we'll be looking to add that, but just wanted to get that out as much as we could in advance of the 22nd. Thank you.
Okay. Excuse me while I get my screen again to the agenda. We now have review of the Northwest Regional Planning Commission draft response letter. That we have a half hour for. Oh no, I'm sorry, an hour and a half for. And this is a part one. I just met with Kirsten to start sort of editing the draft. And she said it would be helpful for me to share the screen and show that while we initiate our first discussion on this. So I will share my screen.
Thanks,
Fine.
Janet. And if that becomes clumsy, hearing that you yourself just have one screen, I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to take that over if it doesn't work well.
How about you take over and people raising their hands and
Sure.
you know, and so can you see the document?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll scroll to the beginning and let Kirsten take it away.
Yep. So first of all, apology that this didn't go out to the board sooner. And I know Greta Brunswick is here from Northwest, and she's probably seeing this herself for the first time. We didn't get it didn't get posted on the website and it, sufficiently in advance. So we're sharing it here. And Greta, I'm happy to follow up and send you a copy of this document after the board meeting. This is only, part one of two and focuses on, the goal elements of the statutory requirements, and the future land use review draft for the board to consider will follow. So what you're seeing is a draft of a reply letter. And like Janet said, she and I just spent an hour starting to go through it. And I guess I would preface this with some general comments that for those of you who have found time to review it, which I know at least one of you has, well, Sarah had said that she's looked at it. There's quite a bit of detail, excerpting and summarizing information from the plan, and it probably goes beyond what's needed to document the reply and the conformance. So the plan is to sort of shrink it down a little bit and make it more concise in some areas, and cite to page numbers in the plan document or the pre-application plan document, to have it be a little more streamlined. So you're looking at the first page, which is mostly boilerplate. I did add some language directly addressing the role of the comments from other state agencies and other people and entities which submitted comments, which are on the database, explaining that the board, as this part of this pre-application review, didn't consider those comments. They're provided to the RPC, for its information and consideration, as it may, or may not want to make changes to the plan as part of its, future final plan submission, knowing what the, those comments are. So a lot of this is fairly straightforward. What you're looking at is this, the statutory references and this, the scope of this review. And the state planning goals. And I think most of this is fairly straightforward, but I guess let me also say, I mean, board members, just anyone interrupt me as we go through this, if there's things, and if you would like to approach today's conversation in a certain way, I'm happy to kind of go through the whole document, or I'm also happy to just kind of tag team like individual board members and go through perhaps maybe the more substantive feedback, kind of one board member at a time. I'm not really sure what the preferred way to do this would be, but Sarah, do you have a suggestion or a question?
So I don't have anything until page 7. But I think maybe just going through this page by page might be a
Okay.
good place to start.
Okay. So what you're looking at is I'd highlighted one of the statutory references, and Janet and I did a little bit of checking and cleaning up an organization today with respect to 4302 B and C. So pretty straightforward, I think. But like I said, anyone jump in with questions.
So these two edits are just to clarify. B and C were kind of convoluted or confused here, and now they're clarified.
Mhm.
And then the individual goals are addressed.
Mhm.
And so just a little bit of wordsmithing.
Yeah, so this section of the draft review goes down through all of the 15 goals, individually one by one. And like I said earlier, the thought is to and Janet and I started doing some of that today, and we'll of course circulate a revised draft. But just a little bit of condensing and streamlining of the content and citing to page numbers. Anyone feel free to jump in or let us know if you want to stop on a specific page.
So you'll see that Kirsten and I are proposing removing these excerpts from the plan and using citations and summaries instead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's really just drawing information from the plan and also reflecting comments and input received, as from individual board members, and compiling that into this draft reply is what you're looking at. And so in keeping with the format that was used for the Rutland plan review, within each goal, there's a summary of how the plan meets the goal. And then there may or may not be some, additional required content that would be needed in order for the board to be able to confirm as part of the final plan that the goal standard has been met. But most of the comments and recommendations are advisory. And so there's those two categories within each goal. Here's something that the board is saying must occur. Again, this is all a draft. And then there's the advisory ones, which are just, consider this element, or this item that was noted by the board, as part of its review. Go ahead, Sarah. Sarah?
Sorry, you're going past page 7 where I had a comment
Oh, okay. Whoops.
up at the top. The other thing that I'll say is, I recognize the short time frame that you have, but what I appreciate is whatever you have for a working draft after this meeting is to get that to us in advance of Monday's discussion as soon as possible, recognizing that there might be a few more changes, but I think there needs to be, what I'd advocate for is also a time frame of hopefully more than 24 hours that we have to review the comments ahead of the meeting next time. Top of page 7.
Yep. I understand, Sarah. And we basically have till the end of next week. Like we had earmarked time today, Monday, and then I think it's Friday is next, Thursday or Friday next week. But that's the day when we would anticipate getting any final revisions, and that's the deadline to submit a reply to the RPC. So, okay, top of page 7.
I'll actually scroll down a little bit. It's more midway with the changes.
Um,
And keep on scrolling. Maybe it's now on the next page.
is it under goal 4?
Hang on. Let me pull up my. Yep, it was under goal 4 is the first bullet point under the plan is consistent with goal 4.
Okay. So it's within the advisory recommendations?
Right, specify priority future transportation projects. I think we should have some outer bounds on that. Recognizing that NRPC is not an MPO and that there are perhaps some identified transportation projects during the term of the plan. I think it might be good to give some bounds on that in terms of identify specific priority future transportation projects during the term of the plan versus leaving that as open-ended as it is right now.
Okay, yeah, I mean, as one board member, I welcome any refinement of that sort of concept that's captured here.
And then
So
if
if
you could
have any
scroll
other
back up,
wording,
I'd
feel
really like to see before you scroll past it, what's on page 6. You're scrolling a little bit fast to see like what the edits are. Maybe if you could take time and highlight what the edits were to this draft versus from last night.
sure.
Fantastic. Thank you.
So, I mean, what you're looking at is basically just wordsmithing.
Yeah.
But goal 4, I think, is where it is more substantive.
Yeah.
In that there's a whole section that the thought was to move that. Actually,
It was in
That's-
the
yeah.
comments, and
Yeah.
really it's a summary of what's in the plan. So it was moved up to here, which is summarizing the plan.
yeah,
And again, I think Kirsten and I decided that it would be better not to restate the plan and rather to cite the plan goals, the page numbers, and just give a brief summary, just to make this shorter.
Yeah,
So that's
well-
what she's working on.
well, yeah, where the summary provided doesn't otherwise already capture the goals or the policies that were excerpted.
Right. Right.
So,
So there are really no substantive changes, Sarah. These are sort of organizational changes.
mhm,
And I think the important parts for us to look at today are the recommendations and whether they reflect the comments that Kirsten received from others and whether her comments are conveyed in a way that is clear and that the board agrees with. So,
well, yeah, and just to be clear, I was inclusive, right? Like you'll recognize, and in some cases, like, I had verbatim what individual board members had sent to me to synthesize. And so as we're looking at this together, if there are elements that you want to discuss, don't agree with, like, now's the time, but we can also continue the conversation about this draft on Monday.
Right.
So,
Okay, so don't scroll anywhere, Janet.
Got it.
And let's leave it right here on the bullet items, because the first bullet item Sarah had a suggested change to, which you just typed in
Yeah.
during the term of the plan.
Yeah.
My additional suggestion was going to be to clarify that we want them to include specific priority future transportation projects, but I would like to insert a word, specific priority future transportation projects of regional significance during the term of the plan. Or, you could put the regional significance at the end of the sentence. I don't care. What I don't want them to think is that they need to go talk to every single member municipality and find
Right.
out what road improvements or stop signs they're going to put up. Even if they're
Right.
priority projects, I want these to be regionally important transportation projects only.
Got it.
My other comment was, as I was reading this quickly this morning, was, did they really not put any in there? My note to myself was, I gotta go back and look. So I don't know whose comment this was, but so it was your impression that this was not addressed at all?
so the V-Trans capital program projects are the ones through, is it the Transportation Advisory Committee? Like, there's a table. But it's not necessarily all of them, like, it's just those ones. And there might be other regionally significant needed transportation improvements. Sarah?
There might be a few, but again, we're working with an area that is not an MPO. So I think, to Alex's point, I think you might see a couple added on, which are not part of that V-Trans capital program. But for the most part, I don't think that you're going to have a lot in that bucket. So the way that I saw your comment, and again, I was quickly reading through the whole thing, was a little bit duplicative with the second bullet point.
Yeah. And it can
So
be
I don't know
reversed.
if you could maybe wrap the two of them together to more clearly state that if there are things that are not included in the V-Trans capital program that are future transportation projects of regional significance during the term of the plan, please include them.
Mhm.
Yes, do that. Do what Sarah just said.
I-
That would be perfect.
And I
You
think
don't have to do
Catherine
it
has
right
her
now.
hand raised, so maybe she can provide some input.
I can't see a hand raised, but if someone does, I think Catherine Dimitrick just joined the meeting and Greta's here.
Oh, okay.
But did someone else want to say something about this? But I understand what you're saying, and I'm happy to make that change as far as merging the first two bullets and focusing on identifying the regionally significant projects that aren't otherwise already identified as part of the V-Trans capital program. That's my interpretation of what Sarah and Alex are requesting.
And just put an if in there, I think, because we don't really know if there are others. But they will know. So, and again, it's an advisory recommendation, so
Mhm.
that's all good. I've had another comment on this set of bullets, but I need to look at my document that has my comments. So hold on a moment.
Well, hopefully you'll recognize a couple of your comments incorporated here, Alex.
Yeah, I don't think I had any on this goal. I thought the plan was in good shape on this goal. So I'm commenting on other people's comments. So it's it's hard to know which bullet to reference, but it's the bullet that now begins include an explicit goal or policy statement addressing how
Mhm.
transportation systems will respect the integrity of the natural environment. not sure why that's necessary. Whose was that?
So
And
that,
what's your
that's,
what's your
that was
rationale?
that was my comment. And I wasn't myself finding that expressly stated as a component of the transportation plan elements of the pre-application plan. And
Why
I
does it
understand that
need
that's,
to be though?
what's that?
Why does it need to be? The plan has a natural resources section that goes into great detail on that. Is this a statutory requirement that I'm just
Well, it's one of the,
deaf to?
I'm, if we want to scroll up, I think we can look at it, but I'm recalling that it's one of the statutory elements of goal 4,
Okay.
that respect the integrity of the natural environment. Transportation systems that inspect the so I hear you, and I had the same thought, Alex. Well, there's lots of content in the plan that deals with natural resource protection. And I wondered, well, maybe that just covers it, but it wasn't very explicitly stated, but I'm interested to know what others think. Sarah?
I felt like there was actually quite a bit within the emergency and resiliency planning and flood adaptation and stormwater and I think there was maybe not a particular sentence that you could say that actually said that, but I think the bulk of the plan, I could probably find some different sections to go back through, but I think if you just did a word search of the plan too, just to do flood resiliency or stormwater, I think there's quite a bit in there on it. So again, I think these are recommendations that aren't, this is the section of we're making recommendations, but they're advisory only, correct?
Mm-hmm.
I
Yes.
just put a note to Kirsten to reconsider by looking in the resilience chapter to see if she felt that it was met there.
Yeah. I agree, Sarah. There's a lot of substantive information in that chapter.
Yeah, so my
So-
suggestion would be to delete this, but if it were to stay, I think I would encourage it to be revised from how transportation systems will respect the integrity of the natural environment to a policy statement addressing that transportation systems will respect the integrity. Because when we use the word how, you can't address that in a sentence, right? That's a okay, now I need to talk about the methodology or the program or the protocols that I'm going to use within our transportation improvements to respect the natural environment. And maybe you can do that through reference to other chapters of the plan. But
So
if we're just
Right.
looking for a policy statement that it will respect them, then okay, we can make the recommendation. You add a sentence that says that, and move on. But yeah, ultimately, I would just delete.
in my mind, I was envisioning that this would just be some minor wordsmithing within the plan to make that nexus between the transportation chapter and those other areas of natural resource protection elsewhere in the plan. Looks like Greta has her hand up. Are we good, Janet? Are we?
Yeah.
Okay, Greta,
Yeah,
go
go ahead.
ahead. Yeah.
Hi, I actually just wanted to go back to the previous point. I don't know if you want to have this type of comment right now, but on 86 and 87 of the plan, there is a highlight of priority projects, both not in the capital program and in the capital program. So just making that note, but
Oh,
thank you for the comment
I must have missed
regardless.
that. I apologize. So 86 and 87?
Mhm.
Okay, but
It's
we'll
a high
definitely take a
level,
look at that.
summary, but
Yeah.
Thank you, Greta.
Okay, so that may eliminate the need for that bullet altogether.
Yeah.
The two comments that we're seeing with like the one that starts with within the transportation chapter and the next one, page 79 about the sidewalk projects. Apology, Alex, it sounds like this hadn't come from you. I was misremembering. But a different board member had made those suggestions and everyone good with those?
Well, so I had a question about the bridges. A sentence could be added to address bridge conditions for bridges less than 20 feet. What I'm not sure what data exists for bridges under 20 feet, so I'm not sure what we're looking for them to say about that. Was there a particular like inventory that whoever had this comment was thinking of, or the desire to have an inventory? I'm not quite sure why this particular suggestion is here.
Sarah.
That was mine, and it's really just, I think you talk about bridges over 20 feet being V-Trans, but just a sense saying that V-Trans doesn't do bridges under 20 feet in that it's the municipal responsibility. I think that was particularly in terms of like flood resilience and just sort of like calling that out in terms of if the plan talks about what happens with bridges over 20 feet, just saying a sentence of what happens or doesn't happen to bridges under 20 feet.
Okay. I just want to make it, if we're going to make this recommendation, I just want it to be clear what it is we're recommending them to do. And I'm not sure if that's just adding a sentence saying that bridges under 20 feet are subject to municipal maintenance and see the flood resilience chapter, or if we're asking them to provide an inventory of those bridges or identify which ones are in poor condition based on information that they may or may not have.
That wasn't my intent at all. It was just when you say what's going to happen with over, just clarify what happens with under. Not that we're asking for an inventory or anything like that at all.
Okay.
So clarify.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Clarify. And maybe Sarah, you can work on that with Kirsten.
That'd be great.
Okay.
And then the sidewalk.
Everybody okay with updating St. Alban Town sidewalks?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, before you scroll past the next one, Janet, that was moved.
Yeah.
So it wasn't deleted. It was moved up into the text of the
Yeah.
description. I'm reading this. It sounds familiar. I think this is from Rutland as well.
It's consistent with Rutland. That's my recollection. Yes.
So is this a recommendation, or is this a statement of what's already in the plan?
It says it references page 85.
So it's a statement of an aspect of the plan and what it encompasses and in some respects doesn't encompass.
But doesn't it say towards the end of it, the plan could include more detail on how regional transportation planning will be coordinated? That feels like a recommendation, or are we saying that the plan is not consistent with goal 4 because of this and it's a conformance issue?
So
That's what I'm getting at.
So Brooke had her hand up, but I'm interpreting that this is just advisory. That there could be more detail included, but Brooke, did you, and Alex, I don't know if you don't want to include this for Northwest.
No, actually,
Brooke, did
I
you?
feel like it's maybe good language that we're going to repeat on all of the regional plans because
Right.
it may be something that each of them is not, hadn't really thought of. But it feels more like a recommendation. So maybe,
Yeah.
sorry, I'm having to think through this
So-
while I talk, but maybe it just needs to be moved back to the recommendation section.
Well, it's partially not. Partially, it's just referencing the plan and suggesting that the plan doesn't address this. And so actually, when in the Rutland response, I had this under the transportation element rather than the transportation goal.
Goal, yeah.
And I had a reference. So goal 4, the draft plan is generally consistent with goal 4. And then I said, see comments on the transportation element in section 1D4 of this pre-application response for a requested revision to give more attention to addressing transportation impacts of growth in tier 1A and 1B areas. So in the Rutland plan, it was a requested revision. So if we want to be consistent, we would move this discussion to that section of the response, the element section, rather than the goal section, and include it as a requested revision. And let me
And
just go ahead,
And I'm
Kirsten.
perfectly fine with that. I candidly, I find like the goals section versus the later section, they're related. There's a lot of
Yeah.
overlap, but the statutory elements are not, they don't match, right? So there's a lot of cross-referencing that can occur from one to the other.
Yeah.
And later in this draft, you'll see I referenced the goals in a few places, but it could be done the other way, and I'm perfectly fine with that.
So, yeah.
To this,
So under the transportation element, this was this for the Rutland plan, this was the only requested revision. So we said the transportation chapter of the draft regional plan generally meets this required transportation element. However, and then some of this language, and then it's the requested revisions were to address the potentially significant. So they were so to address potentially significant traffic impacts resulting from development in tier 1A and 1B areas that will no longer be subject to Act 250 review, the commission should consider revising the plan to 1, add detail about how to address the anticipated need for increased transportation infrastructure planning, and 2, support alternative new or leverage local or state regulatory review processes to address mitigation of traffic from development that will no longer be subject to Act 250 review. And if we are still thinking that this plan could use the same revision, then I think we should use the same language in the same place.
so I was thinking that we can be strictly consistent with how it was approached for Rutland, or we can refine our approach and consider that to be advisory. It just depends what the board wants to do. I feel like it could be done either way, but that's just my own one board member opinion on it.
What do others feel about this particular requested revision? Sarah?
I think it can be advisory. I think this is falling out of that ongoing dialogue around Act 145 and the Act 145 Study Committee within Act 1A1. And I think it's a good placeholder to say that there's this other thing going on over here. But I think it can be advisory. I don't think it needs to be specific. And I also found the bridge references on page 73. If you want to add that in. And again, I think it could just be like bridges over. There could be just like 2 words added to that sentence.
Thank you.
So if we are changing our feedback for NRPC, from what we shared with RRPC, I think we should let RRPC know that actually we think that should just be advisory. on
I'm
that
fine with
particular-
that.
So we just need the board to come to a consensus on this before next Friday. And if it's different from what we suggested for Rutland, we need to let Rutland know. Okay? So I don't think we need to make that decision now. Let's just think
Okay.
about it. And if you, yeah, so. But in any case, I think it should be in the other section rather than this one.
Mhm.
So actually, yeah, I don't know. Well, I'm
So
just
we'll talk
leaving the
about it more on
language
Monday,
there so
maybe?
that, yeah, and maybe Kirsten can move this to that other section, and we can talk about it Monday. So, goal 5.
Brooke has a question.
Oh, sorry, Brooke, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to mention, because I won't be here next week at the board meetings, I think consistency is really important so that everyone is treated the same. So if we do decide that that's in the more advisory category, I do support letting Rutland know that that has been changed to advisory, not a requirement. Just
Yeah,
my
I
thoughts,
just want-
because I won't be here to express them next week.
Okay, thanks, Brooke.
I just want to chime in on that, I also want there to be consistency, but I think there is the possibility that certain regions may have a larger issue on this front than others. And so it does, I think we also need to think about that, right? And Rutland City might be a different animal with regard to tier 1 than St. Albans City. And the rest of the potential tier 1 communities in Rutland County might be different or similar to the rest of those in Franklin and Grand Isle County. So I want consistency too, but I think I just want to contemplate the potential that there might be a region where this wouldn't be advisory. This would be like, actually, you're going to have some significant issues based on what we're seeing in your plan elsewhere, and others might not.
Yeah.
So I think this is one of the hazards of building the plane as we're flying it, is the VTrans study just wrapped up. Kirsten and I saw it this week and had ability to provide comment to it. That will probably go to the legislature, and there might be even things coming out of that prior to these plans coming back to us. So I think it's fine to, as we evolve and look at our different partners and what's going on, to evolve our comments and sort of explain it that way. And also that this is just advisory of, you're going to want to stay tuned to this because there are going to be things evolving that we don't have ability to oversee. Just be prepared to address them when you come back with your. So I feel like there can be some inconsistency just simply because we're building our plane and flying it, and there are other helicopters and other things that are also being built in our airspace that we don't have necessarily control over. If that is a good analogy. Yeah.
What about, though, consistently asking that each of the RPCs address the issue of no longer having VTrans oversight in tier 1A and B areas? It could just be a couple sentences. Just I don't think it's a bad idea.
I agree.
So
I was struggling. I
and
agree
then
with
it doesn't matter whether the differences between Rutland and St. Albans, just, what do you have to say about this? It could be a sentence.
Well, the thing that I've been struggling with a little bit with this is and I agree with what everyone has said, but it's the degree of specificity. While, as Sarah said, the plane's in the air, and so
Right.
the part that I'm a little,
Right.
and that's where my mind starts to go. Advisory, just
We can
it's a
keep it
little- but-
open-ended, just
Yeah,
address
but
it, and
I,
however they address it is how they address it.
yeah, that makes
So-
perfect sense to me.
Yeah.
So maybe include it, but with less specificity, like soften the wording a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Sounds like we revisit on Monday.
Yeah, so, okay. Goal 5, any comments on the draft?
Brooke,
Yeah, and I don't know, because I didn't go back and look at Rutland, but I think this is too polite. I think it needs to be clear. We're saying it is consistent. No, it's not. It is not consistent unless you do this thing that we're saying. I
'Cause this
find
is
it overly
requested-
polite.
Right,
think we
because
need
this
to be
doesn't
very
say,
clear.
this is not advisory recommendation.
so are you
This
thinking it
is,
should say required revisions, Brooke?
Yeah, I think maybe required revisions, but the sentence that I'm not seeing it on the screen.
The
Yeah, here it
sentence
is.
before
The one
requested
that's
revisions.
the underlined bolded. The draft plan is consistent with goal 5, subject to the revisions indicated below. It's not consistent. This is present tense, first of all, and I just think it needs to be clearer that the draft plan is not consistent with goal 5 unless you do this thing that we're requiring, is what I think we want to tell them. I just don't like the language. It sounds
yeah,
like,
I got
know,
you. So, so the plan requires, the goal requires the plan to identify, protect, and it uses specific terms. And what we're saying is the plans have to at least use those specific terms. It has to address those specific terms specifically.
Yeah, so I
So-
agree with Brooke that the bold underlined sentence that begins the draft plan is consistent should be changed if our intention is to say it's not. So I agree with Brooke on that. Better clarity there would be good. I'm not sure I agree, however, that
too.
that outstanding water resources needs to be in the text in order for it to be consistent with the goal, when the goal says outstanding water resources, including, and it gives a long list of them. And I think the plan does address the items in
Right.
that list. And if it does, then this feels like a semantics conversation, and I don't want to have that. I want to be substantive. So I
Right.
might suggest that we eliminate the first bullet. And it's maybe the second bullet that is the one that does need to be addressed in order for the plan to be consistent with the goal.
I also will point out that outstanding water resources is a statutory term, and there are 3 identified in the state, I think. Maybe more by this point. And it could be that a particular region doesn't have those. So, Sarah.
Nope, you just said what I was gonna say.
Oh, I'm sorry. I stole your thunder. So I would
Okay,
like
so-
to remove the first one.
That's fine. That was my own, I'm looking at the wording and looking for it in the document and not seeing
understood.
it. And it's like,
Yeah.
so yeah, it is semantics. But I'm fine with deleting it.
So
Alex, what were your thoughts on the second bullet?
I hadn't identified that as a discrepancy or a deficiency in the plan. My comments were advisory and you captured them in a little below. So I guess I thought that it had addressed the preservation and protection of significant scenic roads, waterways, and views, but I'm happy to entertain
some
thoughts on who put that, whose comment that was?
So
and-
that was my comment. And I just didn't see it sort of explicitly called out, but maybe others that, find that there is relevant content in there that speaks to this goal, the element
Yeah.
of this goal.
I don't remember not seeing it. Sarah?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I too was satisfied on this. I can't, the tough thing is as we go through, you note the areas that you have issues, but you aren't necessarily noting like the page numbers of, yep, I saw this on page
Yeah.
292 or something like that. But I also felt like this was addressed, so.
You did? Okay, can you put a note, Janet, like, Kirsten to re-examine? And can you also put a comment under the draft plan is consistent with goal 5, bold language, to say, reword?
Okay, just so Kirsten.
Thank you.
Greta, are you still there?
Yep. I'm
Do
here.
you have off the top of your head a citation for us about where the plan addresses the preservation and protection of significant scenic roads, waterways, or views?
Scenic resources is specifically addressed on page 102. So it is addressed. We don't specifically identify like regionally designated scenic areas. We
Okay.
have a discussion about it.
Okay,
And then incorporate discussion around scenic considerations as they are, as part of Act 250 and in association with other important natural resources.
okay,
And then it's addressed several times within our goal and policy statements.
okay. Yeah, that's sort of my impression. That's the impression that I had. I didn't feel like this was a neglected goal. Sarah?
I just found it, and yep, it is in there. However, I think the sentence says that municipalities identify it within their regional plans, and I don't know if maybe that should be municipal instead.
Probably, yeah.
Just,
Well, and it also
Thank you.
says that NRPC may wish to incorporate a scenic resource assessment as part of future planning processes. Like I guess again, like this is again me, kind of interpreting this quite like more specifically, I guess, with the goal saying that requires the plan to identify, protect, preserve, C, significant scenic roads, waterways, and views. So if the consensus from the board is that it's sufficiently addressed through this kind of plan content, that's, I guess I was myself, I guess, interpreting that it would have more specificity and like a map and like identify, well, what are the specific significant scenic roads, waterways, and views. But
Alex?
Yeah, so I raised this issue with the Chittenden County plan. And so in the spirit of, doing and learning at the same time, I'm sensitive to it. And looking back at the Northwest plan and the citations that both Greta and Sarah just mentioned, I think my sense was that it was generally addressed. But Kirsten, I would appreciate it if, since this was your if you could just take a second look at those citations that were mentioned and make your own assessment of whether you feel like it's been addressed, because I take your point that it may be addressed broadly, but perhaps there is a need for some additional specificity to the extent that the Regional Planning Commission can provide it. And it's not that they necessarily can invent a list of scenic resources if that planning work hasn't already been done. But maybe there is more specificity. So I just would appreciate it if you could look at it and we could get back to this, on Monday or the following meeting. And maybe it just shifts to an advisory recommendation as opposed
Yeah.
to a required one for consistency.
Brooke, thanks, Alex.
I think that this goal is really important and we should think about it carefully. And I'll be happy to talk offline with Kirsten about it. But let me just give you my perspective on this. When we talk about, permitting under either Act 250 or at the Public Utility Commission, and we're talking about at the PUC, it's referred to as orderly development of the region. And often what you'll find is some resources that are, for scenic views, whatever, that are in a town plan. And what's happening with regional plans is if they're not identified specifically in the regional plan, you know how that whole conversation about shall and should and all that stuff. Well, if you don't say Mount Irish in Berlin, Vermont should be protected and we shouldn't have, I mean, it's part of a scenic view and it's identified in a plan, then it can be utilized in the Queechee analysis, for example, as a clear written community standard for protection of aesthetics. And without that kind of articulation in a regional plan, certainly what I have observed at the PUC is you get through that analysis and it falls off the cliff because you can't demonstrate there's regional significance to this orderly development criteria that really is based on the town and regional plans. So from my perspective, from that experience, this is not something that we should just go, oh yeah, there are scenic resources that are supposed to be identified perhaps. And I'm not talking about, oh, they haven't done the legwork to figure out what those things are. We're talking about, like, to give you an example, one tower case I was working on with the PUC had to do with whether or not there was, Route 100 was scenic through the Mad River Valley. And of course it is, yet it was incumbent upon, in that case, it was the neighbors, not the town, but the neighbors to be able to try to prove that Route 100 was a scenic byway. Because it wasn't in the regional plan or the town plan to be able to just point to and say, of course it is. So then we had to go get the documentation showing when Route 100 was made a scenic corridor. Scenic byway. So from my perspective, if there are things that we already know are identified as important resources, they should be called out. Because there are, the problem with town and regional plans, and I've said this for years now, is they started out as aspirational documents for planning purposes, and they turned into regulatory documents where we compare projects against what's in a regional or town plan. So that's why I think the content's really important, and I don't want to see this, oh yeah, it's good enough, or we don't have it mapped. I think it's really important.
So I would just say that this goal does not require that there be a clear standard for PUC and Act 250 purposes in the plan, and that it is up to the commission to decide whether they want that. This asks for, plans that would be put forth to protect and preserve, and it doesn't specify that you have to have a clear standard, what's the term, Brooke? Clear what standard? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, it's called Clear Written Community Standard.
Clear written community standard in the plan. That's not a requirement here. So I want to be careful about that. It's up to the commission to decide how far to go here. And I think that what Greta referenced is, probably sufficient, and that this should be an advisory. Like, if you want to see more protection of this stuff, then maybe you need to work up put in a map and, identify these more specifically. So that's, to me, I think what we need to do on this one is it's an advisory. Sarah.
Great. Now, I thank you. I really appreciate this conversation. I just wanted to be sure people, I wanted to bring to bear at least what I see unfolding from these decisions.
Yeah,
And you're
absolutely.
absolutely right. It's the commission's determination on this,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
important. So thank
Yeah.
you for the airtime
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah, thanks. Sarah.
Well, I just want to specifically to some of Brooke's points, the language that is included in the NRPC plan speaks to municipal plans that include references to some of these scenic resources. So in terms of some of Brooke's concerns, I think they're allayed by the fact that there are municipal plans that call out specifics of the regional plan references those. So if you were to get into those proceedings, look to where the municipalities have looked at them. And I agree with everything else that Janet said in terms of, this is an area that's advisory, it's maybe for future use, but in the meantime, I think that Brooke's concerns are addressed within what we have here in the NRPC plan.
Okay. Want to look at the advisory recommendations on this goal? Any discussion on these?
I think these came from you, Alex, if I'm remembering.
The first two did. Yes, the first two bullets.
I would just say it would, we could wordsmith this to be a little
Yeah,
clearer.
I
And
just threw them in here knowing that
Yeah.
we would touch on it, discuss it, maybe someone change or, yep.
so I would say, Kirsten, just sort of put them in a more narrative form and run them by
Yes.
Alex to make sure they reflect what his comments were accurately.
Yep. Any other questions or? Okay,
Well,
so we're down on goals. Oh, go
Sorry,
ahead.
Kirsten, the third bullet regarding the classifications of wetlands. I mean, I'm very familiar with the classifications of wetlands, so maybe I'm
I am
the
too.
wrong person to make
Yeah.
this point, but I kind of feel like I don't need the plan to narrate the implications of those classifications because they're narrated in the state of Vermont wetland rules. So I don't know that they really need to do what's being asked or considered in this bullet.
I think that was me. And I think because you are well-versed in what they mean, I don't think that the, to be accessible to the public, I think it would behoove the plan to just explain what those are.
Or
If
maybe
it's
just
referencing
reference the Vermont state wetland rules or something like that. I just did it. I wouldn't want them to have to, insert
It can't be done in a
sections of the
sentence?
rule.
It can't be done in a few sentences?
Sure, it
Or
could.
what? So that's what I'm suggesting, that this is a
Okay.
plan that isn't just for people who understand class 1, 2, and 3 wetlands. And actually that says class 1, 2, and
2. Yeah. Good catch.
That's fine.
Um,
That's fine. I will relent, Janet. I will relent.
okay. Goal 6.
Yeah, and this is it'll be more concise and just referencing the page number in the plan itself to streamline what's been pulled
Well,
out
this one's
here.
not that bad, actually, but this paragraph is a comment on the FLU map, and I think it should be relocated to the FLU comment area.
Yep. And so this is my comment about this small corner of the Enosburg Falls Village Center. But Sarah.
So I have a comment here, and I don't know if we should discuss it because this is going to be moved to the flu area, or if we should discuss it as part of the flu area once we get to that. What's
I was thinking we discuss it when we get to the flu map discussion.
Because
Yeah,
But
All right.
I mean, maybe
I
if we end up
disagree
with
with-
leftover time today, we can circle back to
Right.
it.
I
Does that make
disagree with
sense?
this assessment about the flood hazard incorporated or not incorporated in downtown, so I'm happy to wait on that.
Okay. So this will change to goal 6 is met.
yeah.
Okay.
Goal 7,
I think was straightforward as I read it.
yeah.
Oh, with the exception of this reference to the web-based energy plan, which
I don't know that it's
think-
web-based, it's just a web reference
it's a web
and,
reference. Yeah.
right, and so if it's going to be referenced, we want to have the actual PDF as an exhibit.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
I thought that we were trying to not rely on content that's found elsewhere on the internet
Yeah.
to have it all incorporated directly.
Yeah,
So Greta's here, I think still, and so she'll get this, but perhaps you could just change the second sentence so that anybody else reading this doesn't.
Yeah, it's
I
an
don't-
appendix. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. So we
No,
can
that's-
change that reference.
so,
That's helpful, Greta, if it's an appendix, so it's already there. Okay.
but Greta, can I ask you a clarifying question? And sorry if I just misunderstood the appendix. And it's very expansive, what's in the appendix. It's like a lot of detail. It's great. But it also still in turn references the energy plan. So is what's in the appendix the complete energy plan?
it is. It's the enhanced energy plan.
Okay, Greta, are you,
Yeah, what's included in the appendix is the enhanced energy plan. And I believe that's what this is referencing. I'm not sure.
yes.
I would have
So
to
maybe we
look
can
if you're,
just omit
maybe
the
Catherine can
reference.
touch base on any reference to an energy plan that's within the enhanced energy plan.
Okay.
It,
think
Greta, was the enhanced energy plan appendix submitted to us? Or was it just referenced with a web link?
It is an appendix to the regional plan. I believe it was submitted to you.
Okay,
If not,
Okay.
we can do that easily.
Yeah.
And I just restructured our plan from an accessibility perspective. The enhanced energy plan is very thick and dense and includes a lot of required information. And so we also include an energy element in the main plan just to make that information more accessible for most people who won't be interested in reading the full enhanced energy plan. So that's why we have two.
Well, my interpretation of it was that there is an energy plan component in the pre-application plan submittal, as you indicated, Catherine, and it's great. It's very detailed, a lot of content, but it also in turn references an energy plan that can be found on NRPC's website. And it was the reliance on information on the website that I think we're trying to avoid. So maybe it's as
Yeah.
simple as just strike the reference.
Yeah, or reference the appendix.
Yeah, I don't
Thank
think
you.
it's a problem to reference a website if the content is also in the plan as an appendix. Like, we don't need to tell them that they can't have web links in their plan. But just indicating
Right.
the appendix as well would, I think, solve this, and then we can remove the recommendation and move on.
okay, oops. Remove somehow didn't misspelled, but who cares? Okay,
Okay.
goal 8,
Recreational opportunities seemed straightforward from my perspective. And
okay, Any-
agricultural and forestry industries was addressed in several different areas of the plan.
and here
And I
again, I
think
think
oh, go ahead.
here again, I think Kirsten can probably
And sort of like condense.
condense this and cite pages and maps instead
Yeah.
of having this much text.
I like detail, but I will condense it. I understand. Yeah, so the comment about this is me, sound forestry practices. I was seeing that that is a required element of this goal. And I see it in the plan for agriculture, but I didn't see it, referenced for forest practices. But I don't, Greta and Catherine are here. Feel free to jump in.
I frankly can't recall.
And this is another one of these, like, we'll revise the consistency statement in accordance with Brooke's comment throughout. Sarah?
So, sorry, I'm flipping through. I have so many windows open right now. Just take a look on 98, page 98 to 99.
Page 98?
Yeah, just have a look-see there about forest products and forestry.
So the forest resources paragraph at the bottom of the page of 28?
Yeah, it starts at the bottom of 98. But
Which just says have potential with proper management to serve as areas of core wildlife habitat.
it also goes on to the very last sentence of that whole section says, to ensure good forest stewardship can be found in the Northwest Regional Forest Stewardship Plan 2015. So again, there's a
I think-
whole separate plan.
The question is whether sound forest and agricultural management practices are defined and in statute, and I don't think they are. I think sound is used as sort of an adjective that could, you could use similar words for, right? Good forest management practice. Is that what the word was in that sentence, Sarah?
Good forest stewardship.
Good forest
Yes.
stewardship.
And
Yeah.
the other point
that
is
could-
there's a whole separate plan out there that's not included in this plan, but there is a whole separate plan.
So could this be an advisory recommendation to expand on that element? And I just thought it was thin, but
I think I would have to revisit the plan to agree to that.
okay.
Brooke?
I think the amps are important, especially because they're in other aspects of Act 250. They're being, used as we're working right now on the forest products exemption. And it all is premised on the proper use of standards that are in place, and that is frequently used as the don't worry about it argument. They're doing it the way they're supposed to. I think they're very important to reference, but I don't know whether that's advisory or required or what, but I think it goes right to the heart of the sound forestry practices. So I don't see what the harm is, but I just don't know whether it should be required or not.
Alex?
I actually think this is a good catch, and I don't think that a lot of regional plans that I've seen addresses this statutory requirement. And I think, as Brooke is mentioning, it's pretty easy to do so with a reference to the accepted management practices. We have those for forestry throughout the state,
agriculture.
and we have them for agriculture as well. So yeah, I think this is a decent catch and an easy thing for the regional plan to add, either as a global sort of goal or policy statement, or something with a little more specificity in the forest section. But I don't really care which. But it's sort of like the wetlands comment, right? Like, if you're going to refer to wetland classification and protection under Vermont wetland rules, well, I think you could do the same with regard to forest and agricultural practices with reference to the state's BMPs or AMPs or whatever other acronym you want to throw in there that covers management practices.
Sarah?
I feel like this was met at the top of page 100. Additional information on the characteristics and values of the forest in the region, along with the measures that can be taken to ensure good forest stewardship, can be found in the Northwest Regional Forest Stewardship Plan 2015. So I think, maybe there's another sentence explaining the role that fulfills, but there's a whole separate, like, more substantial planning document over here that's just not in the plan that, maybe a sentence tying that together, but I felt like this was met.
Sarah, that page number was 104.
100.
Oh,
Top of
100.
page, and I'm going off of the numbers on the plan versus the numbers in the PDF.
Yeah.
Top of page 100. Yep.
Okay.
I don't want to split hairs about it, but I still am sitting with Brooke on this one. I think that the AMPs and the BMPs are the state's sort of bulwark to make sure that these very important working landscapes have the right protections. And I'm sure, Sarah, that those are mentioned in the Northwest Regional Forest Stewardship Plan from 2015. But why not call them out specifically in the plan as well, so that folks don't have to reference that document that's not technically part of the plan? And then we can check the box. I know it's sort of sad to say that, but sometimes what we needed to do is see plan language that allows us to check the box on a particular goal. And this feels like a box that could be checked easily with a couple extra sentences that reference those management.
Alex, are you suggesting that they should also reference the BMPs for agriculture?
Do
Yeah.
already.
If they do
so
already, great.
So one thing about the BMPs is that the BMPs are only related to runoff. They're
Yeah,
related to, so there are other, good agricultural practices that aren't covered under BMP. So, and I would just say that the BMP and AMPs are not the be all and end all of good forestry or agriculture.
I would say that from state policy standpoint, they are. That's what the state of Vermont thinks is the most important issue with regard to agriculture and forestry, is how they manage their water runoff.
Right,
I
but
don't
these
disagree
are-
with you, but
But
I think
but
that's,
these are regional plans that, there may be other regional priorities that could be addressed. I'm just saying, I wouldn't say only limit to referencing AMPs and BMPs. So, Kirsten,
Sorry, I'm having a little computer wonkiness. So I would prefer to leave it more open to the RPC as to which more expansive sound forestry practice would be referenced here. The ANR, AMPs for forestry and logging would make sense to me as a reference, but perhaps they would want to cite to some other more specific practice. So, or just another practice altogether. So I just think that it's not substantive enough, and I think that they should do more. Yeah, I did put a reference to the AMPs in the text on, above this, what's currently presented as a requested revision, but could be advisory. But I still sort of tend to err on the side of, like, I think they should make a revision should occur here, but I'll go along with whatever the group decides. But I'm kind of with Alex and Brooke on this. Brooke.
Yeah, I think that would be fine, whether it's the AMPs or the forestry plan that they've developed that's based either on AMPs or some other kinds of standards. I think that's the most important aspect of it, is that there is some management standard. So I'm good with leaving it up to the regional planners to decide, but I think that we would like to see that standard, whatever it might be that they choose.
Okay, good to move on for now. Some advisory recommendations.
Yeah, so the advisory recommendations, these are just ad verbatim and can be wordsmithed if the decision is made to retain them. They're quite specific and have, you know, helpful page numbers, as you can see.
Page are we
So
on?
can you explain the first one? I don't really understand what that's getting at. Consider adding more details about how impacts to existing ag operations and prime ag soils can be mitigated. And how the Regional Planning Commission can implement mitigation measures. I don't understand what that's getting at. Is that,
So if it's okay, I'd like to invite the board member whose comment it was to go over this.
It wasn't mine, was it? I
I
don't
know it wasn't
recall.
mine because I don't understand it. So it must be somebody
Yeah.
else's.
It wasn't me.
Okay.
It wasn't me. The Prime Ag one?
Yeah.
That's,
Okay.
Wait,
I
10?
thought that all three of those came from board members, and so I'm not
Let me
remembering.
just make sure it wasn't me, because I think one of those was mine, the invasive species ones.
That one I believe was yours. Let
Yeah, that
me-
was mine. Oh, here we go. Yeah, I don't see the other one. So should we?
I will just.
Oh, no, it
let's
was
just-
me. It was me. Okay, sorry. Why did I say this? 64% of the region. Oh, I don't know. It seems straightforward to me. The plan emphasizes how important the agricultural economy was, but there isn't much on protecting or mitigating impacts on those operations. Sarah.
and I would say that perhaps this is one of those things that when you have your nose so close to it, you don't think to say what's right in front of you, which is a lot of Franklin County has actually had preserved and conserved ag soils as a result of prime ag mitigation. There's a substantial amount, and I can't pull together off the top of my head where in the plan is. I see Greta has her hand up too, but in some ways I feel like they don't need to do this because there's been such a importance placed upon this and then so much work done. So perhaps it's just adding a sentence or two somewhere in this to make it a little bit more clear, but I'll
Yeah.
defer to Greta.
Yeah. Greta?
I mean, I think there's numerous areas that I could reference and it would take me a minute to find all of those references in the plan to address this comment. When we have this comment in our hands, I think we could potentially follow up at a next meeting. But I know that we address protecting primary agricultural soils and farming as a significant industry and aspect of our region, numerous places, and strategies on how to, encourage and achieve better site design to help mitigate impacts to agriculture and along those lines.
So that's in there. And, I don't recall even why I felt that there was a you know, a hole here to fill. So I'm willing to let it go if nobody else saw it.
I hadn't flagged that.
Yeah,
myself.
Sarah.
Page 107, midway through, there's, I think, couple, and again, if I had more time, I could fly through this a little bit better, but there are many strategies that municipalities can use to implement. This includes pro-agricultural land use policies and town plans, conservation of farmland through the purchase of development rights or other means of supporting. So there's a whole, before you get to forestry, forest land, wildlife, and natural areas, a whole section on that. And again, there's a box on top of that about supporting strategies for agriculture that talks about TDRs and such. So again,
So, I guess I would just say that nobody uses TDRs. Hardly at all. And
but Primag
outside
mitigation
of-
is a TDR.
What?
Primag mitigation is a transfer of development rights.
Well, okay. But there aren't TDR policies at the municipal level.
Yes, there are.
In Franklin County?
I'm not aware of in Franklin County, but there are within the state of Vermont.
Right, but here, and so they're not, I mean, that's not, that's a list of ways that things can be protected, right? But the explicit plan for protecting isn't expressed. And maybe, as you said, because there's so much is already protected in Franklin County, and maybe I just didn't know that. Maybe it can just be said that, a certain percentage of prime ag soils in Franklin County are permanently protected.
Yeah,
But
I
as I
Janet's
said-
willing to let this one go. I would like
Yeah.
to see it go. I think the
Yeah.
plan adequately addresses prime ag soils.
Yeah.
I'm not remembering off the top of my head if the plan already identifies the degree to which prime ag soils are already protected. I think in my excerpts from the plan information, I was highlighting the the significant scope of farmland in this region and in Franklin County in particular. But I'm not remembering specific, how much is currently conserved. But I think that would be helpful information to reference if it's readily available.
Well,
Can you just scroll
so
back
it's-
up to the goal, like the statutory requirement with respect to, so it,
Got to go just a little further, Janet.
Yeah, a
Just
little bit more.
one more click up. Yeah, there you go.
to encourage and strengthen agricultural and forest industries. Sound forest agriculture management practices.
I mean, I feel like
Strategies
those are met.
protect-
And maybe my
Like-
question was whether the RPC had particular policies and action items around that, or whether it just deferred to the municipalities. So as I said, I'm willing to let this go and we can move on unless somebody else is attached to it at this point. Brooke,
And attached to it, I just wanted to talk about invasive species before we leave that one.
oh, okay.
Yeah,
That one was mine.
let's move on to the other two bullets.
Can you see it?
Yeah, I just wanted to add a voice to invasive species, tough area to plan for or to explain what you're gonna do, because it's so specific to the situation. It's a really tough area, so I just didn't know exactly what level of specificity that we were looking for here. I just didn't want to give them a job to do that's kind of.
Yeah, I wasn't looking for specificity. I don't think there was much.
It's more of a
It just says
commitment that
assist
we're
in the
gonna deal
efforts
with
to
it.
combat. How are you going to do that?
Yeah,
It just seems so broad that it's almost meaningless. That's all.
Yeah,
Sarah.
gotcha.
Well, I think a lot of the responsibility is not necessarily the RPC or the municipalities, but I'm thinking of, for instance, at the boat launch areas where the state of Vermont hires friendly people to tell you to wash off the bottom of your boat, have those sorts of stations at like our friends in Fish and Wildlife. So I think that's helping support those, and perhaps if some of those efforts were enumerated here of what some of the other agencies are doing, I think that could probably help address it. But
Yeah.
the state parks in the area that ban bringing in firewood from within a certain area. I think all those things are happening. It's just not a municipality or RPC's
Yeah.
role.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm fine with the advisory suggestion that Janet's making. If in fact on page 103, policy G commits the Regional Planning Commission to assist in efforts to combat the spread, why not provide some specific examples, even if they are simply the ones that Sarah just provided? I'm fine with this being an advisory recommendation.
yeah. It's policy 1G says assist in efforts to combat the spread of invasive species. So it's definitely already a policy statement.
Yeah. That's what I reference
Yeah.
it. But I just felt like it was so broad as to be not very useful. So.
I
Okay,
support
so this
retaining
is
this
just
bullet as written.
advisory. Let's leave it. And this last one, there's a statement that says the upland area of northwestern Vermont contains the largest tracts, which I think should be tracts, of contiguous woodland in the northern forest. And that is decidedly not true. So I think I'm not sure what was meant by that. Maybe in the northwestern part of the state or something, but I think that just needs to be revised.
I had to pick on them, didn't you, Janet? I saw the same thing when I first read the plan, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to let that go because that doesn't sound accurate to me, but it's important to them. But yeah, good for you for calling it out and requiring a correction
I
or
think they're
clarification.
talking about something else, not the northern forest. So
I think you're probably right. You're probably they're probably talking about within this region, that portion has the largest tracts of contiguous forest.
Yeah. So
Onward.
anyway, just advisory. They can keep it in there if they want. Anything on goal 10? There's an advisory recommendation to say more about the status and number of existing extraction operations.
Yeah, so this was, Alex, this was yours, and I added, you had highlighted the importance of allowing for some extraction prior to residential development, and I said for emergency flood recovery, bridge and highway repairs. I mean, if we're going to say this, I think it should recognize that as well. But I agreed with you that I didn't see, but Greta or Catherine can correct us if we're wrong here, but I didn't see that that the existing extraction operations were kind of enumerated or kind of described, but beyond some sort of a very high level kind of. So I support including this.
Can I just ask what this notion of allowing for some extraction prior to residential development means? I'm not
Yeah.
following what
Yeah,
that is.
I can follow up on that. So I was taken to task in my municipal work in years past by someone from this industry who said to me in a municipal plan creation, your plan doesn't address the importance of these resources, particularly sand and gravel, and they're precious, they're finite, and we use a lot of them in Vermont. And his point was, you should be clear about the fact that sometimes where these precious resources exist, they need to be utilized before they turn into a residential subdivision. Because the moment that all of that residential subdivision happens, then the resource is unavailable and gone. It's sort of akin to a forest block and wanting to protect that forest block from fragmentation through residential subdivision. But in this case, those materials could be harvested and still allow for that residential subdivision if in fact that project's being proposed in an area that has the best sand and gravel resource in the region. So maybe I'm overstepping a little bit, but I'm sensitive to that feedback I got long ago. I think it was correct, and want to, I want these regional plans to acknowledge the importance of the resource, not just the potential adverse impacts that using the resource or extracting it could have.
Yes, I think that's aligned with an element of Act 250 Criterion 9D and E that prescribes that, that development shouldn't preclude extraction. Like you don't. So that's how I had interpreted what you wrote, Alex. But I think it could be reworded to clarify that yeah, if development is undertaken in areas with high mineral extraction potential, that extraction potential is, considered and supported so that you don't lose that opportunity to have access to those valuable resources. Like I think that's sort of the gist of it, as I'm understanding what you're saying, Alex. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Does that comment reflect what you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I would prefer to see the wording reworded because right now it sounds like some kind of like I don't know how to explain it. There's something that just feels wrong about the way this is articulated.
Yeah, it's not expressed very well, so I will improve it.
Okay, let's move on. Goal 11. Housing.
Yes. So the plan has a very detailed housing chapter, and I learned more, reading it and understanding more about this whole topic. And again, here pulled in a lot of detailed content from the plan and the specific strategies that were identified. But Janet and I have agreed that we'll do this in a more, like I'll make this more concise. So I just included a fair bit of detail because I thought it was all just such an important, substantive, detailed topic. I was trying to capture it all, but I think it meets the goal. And I think all of these came from others. So if we can take them in turn, whoever, put forward the request, and I think a lot of it was you, Janet.
Mine were these down the highlighted ones, and I think they need to go in the housing element section rather than this section.
Okay, so not as a specific advisory recommendation,
No,
but,
as,
oh, down
they-
below,
they sh-
okay.
yeah, they shouldn't be
Yeah,
in the
can you
goals
put it,
section.
okay,
They-
so you're saying relocate.
Yeah,
Um,
and then,
so just,
so let's see if, yeah, some of these others, maybe they all are. Are these all mine?
I think they
First
were
one's
actually,
mine.
Janet, if I'm remembering
The
correctly.
first one is Alex. Go, Alex.
Oh,
I'm as inartfully as I might write, as indicated in the last goal 10 issue. I hope that this couple sentences is clear. So just tell me if it's not, and I'll try to explain it more.
I think it's clear.
You know, that could be combined with this one that I found about Richford. And
Sure
I don't
could.
know, I'm just interested if Greta and Catherine are still here, why does Richford have such a huge number or proportion of rental units?
I think that Richford comment could, you're right, Janet, could just be tacked on to the end of mine as a for instance.
Yeah,
Were you actually wanting us to answer that question?
I
If
don't
we
know,
know?
it's,
Just as-
I'm very curious.
I don't think we really know why
Mm,
the market has led to that. There's a lot of old historic homes in Richford that have been carved up into apartments, many which are owned by people who don't live there. And it historically, because it's less expensive, has been a place that people with housing vouchers have been able to find housing.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we'll wordsmith this together. Okay, and so the rest of these were mine. I don't know how others feel about them. We can postpone consideration of the two highlighted ones. One is just a correction on your pie chart. And actually, I think what you've done, Catherine and Greta, is to be accessible, and you've had shades of colors. And so maybe what you want this to be is not to refer to green or yellow, but shades. Isn't that correct? To be ADA compliant?
Yes,
Okay.
it's good comment.
Honestly, Janet, I'm not sure that it matters to me that the plan include more details about the indicators included in the dashboard, but I'm happy to defer to you if you feel like that would be helpful for inclusion in the plan. I mean, the dashboard exists, it's on the website. It does things that housing dashboards that I've seen elsewhere do.
Yeah, and I thought that the plan could just sort of, tee it up. Like, here are the indicators that we're following on the dashboard.
Or at least give some examples as opposed to an exhaustive list.
Yeah, something like that. So. Oh, and then I think this last one is just a correction, maybe. Or no. Because 12 and 24 doesn't equal 35. Why did I put this in here? I guess just adding a little discussion about figure 9. It's not critical, just a suggestion. Everybody okay with that?
I'm fine with it. It's just kind of
Okay.
sharing an observation that you made and that Northwest can consider refining it. I don't feel
Okay.
myself sufficiently expert in all the housing types and targets to sort of go to this level of detail, but if, you know, if it's straightforward and not a big, you know, added big task, I think it's okay to ask them to consider looking at that. Like, that doesn't mean they have to. It's just saying.
Right.
Yep.
So I'd like to take stock of time because I don't have the agenda on my screen. I only have access to one screen right now. Can somebody tell me where we
So-
are?
At 11 o'clock, we were scheduled to go into executive session, and that is 10 minutes from now.
And was there anything in between that we
No.
missed? Okay,
No.
okay, so goal 12. There's
And I
a
think this
summary of how
was,
the plan addresses goal 12. It's a long summary. I don't think we need it to be that long.
yeah, so this, I agree, and I will make it more condensed and concise. This was me, and I welcome the conversation around sort of finance element of this goal requirement. Because I just didn't see that that was incorporated. But I don't
Sorry,
know if
let's scroll
others,
up a little bit. The 12th goal, to finance an efficient system. So you're asking that the goal, that the plan be revised to indicate how an efficient system may be financed.
yeah. But I don't know if others have given this thought or took note or have anything to say about it.
And this is because if we back up,
To plan for, finance, and provide.
yeah. So is there discussion of financing?
Could you scroll back up to that goal first
Yeah,
before you
yeah.
scroll back down so we can read it? Thank you.
Yeah.
So this is inclusive of all public facilities.
Yeah.
And what was the recommendation below?
To include discussion about financing for these facilities.
Thought they did.
Page 114 has a paragraph in the transitional areas to talk about to ensure well-planned
Yeah,
and
so-
well-financed infrastructure.
Yeah, now that you've scrolled, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No.
Well, now that Janet has scrolled down to display the full verbiage here that I suggested, it definitely is addressed for the transitional future land use area, but I didn't see beyond that area that it was addressed. But Greta, you've got your hand up. I welcome your
On page on page 138, we discuss funding available for water and wastewater systems. And I believe, without giving you specific references, funding for transportation infrastructure is also discussed. Again, I don't even have these comments in front of me, so I haven't had time
Right, that's
to.
okay.
I know,
Yeah.
and I apologize, Greta. So on
That was
138,
138. Greta, did you
Correct.
say?
Yes,
Okay.
138 of the document,
yeah,
147
which
of the
says in
PDF.
part under wastewater as a result of the pandemic and
The
recently
last
passed federal
paragraph.
spending and infrastructure bills, more funding than normal is available for water, wastewater, and stormwater infrastructure.
Okay, I'm just saying Kirsten's gonna look more closely at that.
But to help guide my kind of relook at this, I'm just wondering what would be the board members' kind of general expectation for how much specificity would belong? Like, is what I just read sound
I would say not
sufficient or
much because it's not within the Regional Planning Commission's purview to be doing this work. It's just in its purview to be assisting in this kind of work.
I would say, Kirsten, that most plans that I've read do address how public infrastructure is paid for. But they do it in a broad sense, and they refer to municipal property taxes and other innovative financing systems that municipalities use, like TIF districts. So I think you're bringing a fresh set of eyes to this. My initial response was going to be plans don't get into the finance of this stuff, but you're reading the statute and then they are supposed to address that. But I think the way that they ought to do it would be a more general discussion of how public infrastructure is typically paid for in this region or really in Vermont. And I can't think right now as to whether they address that somewhere in the plan that I'm just forgetting. But if not, maybe there's a way to reference that when you look back, or maybe this is an advisory sort of recommendation to say a little bit more about how public infrastructure is paid for and financed. That understanding Janet's point that regional planning commissions and regional government in general don't have anything to do with that. But that doesn't mean the plan shouldn't talk about how it's done.
Yep. Janet, can you make a quick note in the comment box too, like maybe put it in advisory? And I see Sarah has her hand up.
Yeah, I think a couple of things. I think page 48 also, when it's talking about libraries and rec, it's in different places throughout, and it talks about assisting with. So I felt like this was met. I think this is perhaps advisory. I see Janet already added in about TIF and CHIP, and I think that that's something that fresh in my mind was the CCRPC plan that referenced those sort of financing mechanisms and trying to support communities. I think there's also some stuff in here about capital plans and municipal capital plans and maybe assisting municipalities with those. I think that was in transportation off the top of my head. But yeah, I would second that this is perhaps advisory only.
Janet, you might want to note page 140 also, which talks about the recycling facility in Georgia. For Kirsten's reference.
Thank you. Please know, I certainly didn't myself interpret that, the RPC was going to be pursuing loans and contracting with contractors to construct infrastructure.
But they can assist. They definitely can assist in those endeavors. So yeah.
Yeah. It's supporting it. Yeah. No,
there's numerous policy statements throughout the plan related to supporting municipalities with financing.
Yeah.
With infrastructure.
Great. Thanks, Greta. So Kirsten will reevaluate that one. Goal 13. Childcare, pretty straightforward.
This was another one of my comments. It just didn't, maybe it's a little bit analogous to, Janet wondering about invasive species. Like it's, could there be some more detail? It was not very, it was definitely mentioned, but I think it could say more, but that's just my own. I don't know if anyone else.
Anyone else?
I felt like.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Again, not in front of me right now, but there's a significant project in Alburg that was just completed that the RPC assisted with. And so I think maybe calling out more specifics of what's being done, but I felt like that was being met. I just don't have that right up in front of me.
Okay.
Yeah, and I just want to say for the record, as a long-term planner in this state, that there's always been a little bit of head scratching about this goal and how municipal plans or regional plans should be in the business of childcare, or at least planning for childcare when we really have nothing to do with that. So it's very difficult, Kirsten, for them to do what you're asking, even though I think it may be worth pointing out, like Sarah said, because this regional planning commission has done some, but it's hard to come up with specific examples of what should be done. And the way you've phrased it, I think is actually really good because you've not phrased it in the sense of what the Regional Planning Commission should be doing. You've phrased it in the sense of what employers, schools, and community organizations ought to be doing. So I'm not adverse to having this as an advisory recommendation. I just want you to know that from my past experience, it's really hard thing to do on a municipal or a regional plan.
Well, I was scratching my head over it too, trying to imagine what kinds of collaboration the RPC might facilitate, but thank you.
All right, goal 14.
So this
Flood
section, I
resiliency.
think is, again, I'll make it more concise. This is the same requested mapping revision that we'll have the discussion elsewhere under the future land use map component. And I think would be
Yeah, it seems like it's consistent with the goal to me without necessary revisions, as long
to
as
the
we
map. Yeah,
discuss what
that was-
revision you're talking about later in the
I know,
elements.
and I try to, like, in places the plan refers to the mapping, and so it's a bit,
Yeah,
it's a little bit
okay.
hard sometimes to know exactly where to place things.
It's hard to
but
parse all this out. It's
Yeah.
convoluted in statute. So,
We are
15th
just
goal.
after 11, Janet.
What?
Yeah, we're at 11:02,
Oh.
but we're almost through this. Do we want to
Yeah,
get through
let's
it?
finish. Isn't this the last goal?
Yep, and
Yeah, it is.
NRPC did this great
right,
analysis
right.
under this goal. And Janet had commented like maybe this could be a model for other RPCs. And I made a couple of my own observations about that. See if I can remember. Yeah, that like ANR is doing this rulemaking and there will be mapping and also consideration of cumulative environmental burdens as part of that future ANR work. So this could be reassessed when these other tools and information become available. And then I also think that, yeah, it could be a model, but each region may have its own characteristics, and that the starting point would be that, they should consider all of the 36 statutory examples, and maybe there would be others more specific to the region that would be a starting point. Because the approach that NRPC took was to make use of available information, identify it, analyze it, which is great. But they also did some consolidation of those 36 statutory examples to come up with the specific metrics. It was quite interesting. But goal met, right? I think that's kind of
That's the upshot.
Yeah, there was one comment from a board member about maybe considering distance to grocery stores as a metric.
Okay. I think I would like to work with Kirsten to shorten this. I don't think we need to restate as much as we do here. Is everybody okay with that?
The work in progress, and Kirsten's the lead. So if she's willing to take your help, I'm not going to veto that.
Okay.
Oh, nor am I. I just really liked the content and the details, so.
Yeah.
But that's okay, we can shorten it.
Mm.
You know, part of me throughout was, was like thinking too, I mean, you could just say standard met. Don't have to get into all this sort of discussion, right? I mean, that is also an option.
Uh-huh.
The pre-application plan has been reviewed, standard met. Like some of them, you don't have to say anything.
Right, but you do need to tee up your recommendations. So,
Yeah, for the ones that have advisory recommendations or requirements, yeah, it needs to be explained.
yeah,
Yep.
so I'll work with Kirsten on goal 15 wording. All right, so let's
Stop
stop
here?
there for today. And Kirsten can get you a draft maybe by the end of the day that can be posted for Monday. Sarah?
I think if you could stop sharing screen, that would be good, so I can see, thanks. So I think just before we leave this and go into executive session, I want to come back to something that you'd said earlier, Janet, in terms of sort of equity in the process. And I think it's tough, and just realizing that we're evolving. And as I hear you saying that you're going to work with Kirsten to make sure that things are succinct and what have you, is unfortunately you have a parallel freight train over here, which is CCRPC, which I'm working on. And I want to make sure too, I think there's some merit to being brief and saying met unless there's something. But and I think this goes maybe to the whole Act 1A1 sort of like handbook about training that we're going to work on eventually, is how we want to phrase this and making sure that we're trying to keep the same between different plans and plan reviews. So I
Yeah.
hear that you guys are working on that part of the airplane over there. Just at some point, and Janet, maybe we can catch up later just to make sure that my part of the airplane balances. I think that's just something that I want to be cognizant of.
Okay, sounds good. Anything from anybody else before we move on to the next agenda item? Greta,
So-
Catherine, anything
I
from
was
you?
I was just gonna say thank you. This was helpful to listen in, and just wondering, I just wanted to be clear on the timeline for when we were gonna get the draft comments. Is that Monday or?
Kirsten's gonna try
So
to get
the-
something posted to the website today.
The
Right,
reply is due next Friday. And that's what we're working towards, meeting that deadline. It's been a little challenging, so sorry we haven't been able to get documents out further in advance, and there'll be another section. So I think we will definitely do our very best to post something later today that reflects today's conversation. But I do have some other commitments this afternoon, so, it might be, we'll see what staff are available to post on the website, but we can, distribute things via email too in advance of getting it on the website.
Okay, yeah, that would be great.
And
Thank you.
it might even, if it's possible it won't happen today, it might be tomorrow. So I'm just trying to be realistic here with Janet and I working together on it.
Sarah?
I would just say that the document that went out to the board that we've discussed here is a public document, so it seems to me that at the very least we could try and email it to them,
Yeah.
just so that they can start to read and review what we've been. And
Yes.
yeah, and that should probably be the document that we reviewed coming into this should probably be up on our website as part of the meeting materials for today. And then I'm happy to make a motion, Janet, if you're ready for one.
Okay, any further discussion on the NRPC draft response? Okay, go ahead, Sarah.
All right, the board needs to discuss pending and probable Act 250 appeals and enforcement actions, personnel and staffing matters, and have confidential attorney-client communications on these matters. I move that we find that premature public knowledge of these matters would place the board at a substantial disadvantage and the board enter executive session.
Second.
Second.
Kirsten seconded. Any discussion? Okay, All
Can we
those
have
in-
a 2-minute break before we come
Yeah, I was
back
just
in?
gonna say, we'll have a break, maybe 5 minutes. So maybe we'll start at 11:15. So all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
That was 5 ayes. So we will come back to this meeting after our executive session. See you soon. here, right? Yep. We are back from executive session. We have nothing to report out. I believe there's only one thing left on our agenda. Sarah,
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
thank you. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Okay, we are adjourned. See you all soon.